So, good evening and welcome to Real Talk, where every Sunday night we offer insight, education, and resources to in-home caregivers and those affected in their world, the children, the parents, their extended family, and obviously the nanny, doula, and postpartum doula and newborn care specialist community. Our goal is to offer real-life topics and learning through discussion of real topics, real issues, and to offer real solutions. Tonight, I am super excited to talk to our guest. This is somebody I've actually wanted to get on here for a while, but it took us a little bit to get there. So we are going to talk tonight to Angela Johnson, who has done some amazing things in the nanny world in a relatively short period of time. She has an extensive childcare background, but in the last couple of years in particular, she has had a profound impact on our industry in so many positive ways. So before we get into our learning topic tonight, because Angela has some really great things to share with us, I want to ask Angela to tell us a little bit about herself, about where she came from, kind of what she's already done in our world, and kind of where she might be going with things. So Angela, welcome. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Where to start? I've been in this industry, and when I say this industry, I mean the childcare industry, for basically all my life, because my parents were teachers and not one toy was ever not a learning toy. So that started me, my learning started early. I started babysitting at 11. I started my own home daycare at about 22. And then I got into the nanny field when I was about 35. So I've been doing this a while. Lately, I have been doing Ask the Nanny, which is a Facebook Live show on Monday nights. I bring industry experts like Tonya on to talk about parenting, babies, anything that has to do with the children, the parents, and the surrounding community. I bring them on and we talk about what's important to our world. Basically, a mini professional development session on Monday nights. And a couple of years ago, I quit my nanny job and went full-time newborn care specialist. So I love working with babies. And I've had the opportunity to work with about 38 sets of twins. And so that's my specialty, twins and toddlers. And since COVID hit, I've only worked with one set of twins, but I have decided to start doing some motivational speaking. You'll see me all over the internet speaking, and I've done some parent consultations. Parents are having problems with, what do I do here? What do I do there? So 0 to 3 is my area. So I take parents and I coach them. And for the very first time, I virtually sleep coached a parent and got the child to sleep at 4 months.
Awesome.
No doubt. So I'm spreading my wings, stretching myself, and just trying to keep up in this virtual world.
Right. So you've also done a lot of work with the U.S. Nanny Association. You want to tell us about that for a sec?
Okay, I was going to say that for last, but okay. I am currently the director of nanny services for the U.S. Nanny Association. We have been, we're about 8-9 months old now, and COVID came right in the middle of our explosion, so we had to close down. But we are having our first parent and nanny conference. It's not just a nanny conference, it's for parents too. We have over 40 hours of on-demand videos that we are going to have, and you can sit in your home, get your popcorn, get your pencil, your paper, and take notes and watch the conference, all from the enjoyment of your living room.
Fantastic. And we will make sure that there is information in the feed so that for any of you in our audience who are interested in learning more about that or learning from that conference, you will be able to access that information. And one thing Angela hasn't bragged about in here, but I'm going to brag for her, is she's also an amazing cook and makes fantastic food, including really good jam. And I have a bunch of it at my house, and she makes really great vanilla also, and we've been using that at our house. We had scones yesterday morning made with that bourbon vanilla, and it was fantastic, and then had jam to put on them. So we were enjoying that. So we'll let Angela share all that information in the feed so that if you're interested in any of the many areas where Angela has her hands and is doing it with excellence, you can touch on those. But Angela, you've had such an amazing impact on the in-home childcare industry in the past, currently, and going forward into the future. I know that's not going to change. Tonight, we're going to talk about one specific area that I think personally, when I saw this come up as a potential topic, I was excited about, because we don't talk about this enough. This doesn't come up at conferences very often. It doesn't come up in a lot of arenas, except just a little touch on here or there. And so I'm really excited to talk about emergency prepared readiness with you tonight, because this is something that is super important. And, you know, we have to look at, what do we do when something really unexpected happens? You know, we think about the little stuff. We think about, oh, I fell and bumped my head, we need to put ice on it, or, you know, I cut my hand or whatever. But this is kind of more the big stuff we're going to talk about today. So tell us why this was something that you're interested in, why it's something you're passionate about and wanted to share with us tonight.
Well, back in 1992, I lived in Alaska, and Alaska is a totally different beast than anywhere else. And when I say beast, we deal with beast.
Yeah.
The first thing they tell you is don't honk your horn at the wildlife. So I learned that first. But it became important to me because I had been in Alaska all of 3.5 months, and my son was playing with the cover to a barbell. It was like a lone cardboard tube, and he was in the top bunk, and he was banging on the wall, and it was bedtime. And I went in there and I said, why are you playing with this? You're supposed to be asleep. And I went to take it from him, and he was reaching for it. So I reached up like this and I pulled it back, and I looked up. I felt it scraping against something. I looked up, and the covering of the light fell and crashed across the left side of my face. And it ended up cutting my eye. And I was there. My husband at the time was in Anchorage, and I was in Fairbanks. So I was there with 3 children under the age of 5, my own children. And I was like, oh my God, what do I do? And my first thing was call 911. So I'm calling 911, but it's January. It's like 10 to 12 feet of snow right outside my door. I've got to get them dressed because I know I can't see out of my left eye. So I know we're going to the hospital, and I've got to get them dressed in snow boots, snow suits, all of this stuff. And the emergency paramedics, they came and they looked at me and they said, well, ma'am, we need to look at your eye. And I'm thinking, can you take my children into the living room and get them dressed? Because it was 2 of them. Well, ma'am, I need to look at your eye. I said, wait a minute. I looked him straight in the eye. I said, look, I don't know what's behind, because I was like this. And I told them, I said, I don't know. I haven't looked in the mirror. I don't know what's behind my hand. I don't want to freak out my children. Can you please take them in the other room and get them dressed while this one looks, it was like I took control and just told them, look, this is the situation. I need you to go over here. I need you to do this. And I'm trying not to panic. Right. So they take the kids, they look at my eye, And long story short, three surgeries later, I had 21 stitches on my eyeball.
Oh.
I had my face on this side was swollen. Thank God it only cut my eye. It didn't cut my face.
Mm-hmm.
And I had only been there such a short time. I didn't know where my children were. I had called a lady from my church, and she was supposed to come and pick them up. And they finally told me right before I went into surgery that she came and got them. I was worried about them. My blood pressure was up because I was worried about my children, because that's the first thing they told us. Children, especially young children, will get kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
In Alaska. It was before you had to have a passport to cross the borders into Canada. All of that was not in play. So that's when it became important to me. Okay, I need a plan.
Mm-hmm.
If something like this happens again, I need a plan. Now, I had a home daycare, and we did fire drills all the time with the kids. But what about a personal plan? What about just for my family?
Mm-hmm.
So it was me and my three boys in the ambulance, headed to the hospital, and had no clue what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to get numbers together. I didn't even have, all I could do was remember the first sergeant's number, because my husband was in the military. All I could remember is his number, and I called him. Of course, he's in an Anchorage too, and he has to call back to Fairbanks to get everybody situated. So I had no plan,
Mm-hmm.
and it scared me. And my blood pressure was steady rising. They're like, you need to calm down. I was like, where are my babies? Where are my babies? Where are my babies? I can't find my babies. Where are my babies? That was what I was worried about. And I don't want another parent, another nanny, anybody to go through that if they don't have to. If you plan ahead, these things happen, you will know. It just so happened I taught my 5-year-old the day before how to dial 911. Well, he was soon to be 5. He was like 5 days out from being 5. And I said, now, if something happens, an emergency happens, I need you to dial 911. So when I went to grab the phone to dial 911 when the accident happened, he had already called them. And I was like, I need you to hang up because I need to dial 911. And the woman said, ma'am, this is 911. And I was like, well, who called you? Your son. Oh, okay. So I was glad that I taught him what to do. I'm glad that he recognized at the age of 4, this is an emergency. Mama needs help. So that part but that was as far as I had gotten. So being prepared for any type of emergency. And this was like a freak accident. And it could have, the doctor told me if I hadn't looked up at the angle that it cut me, it probably would have went straight through my brain and I would have been dead.
Wow.
So that was what just kind of really put a fire under me to take the CPR class in Alaska, because it's totally different. Living in Alaska and surviving the wilderness and the snow in Alaska is totally different than living in the lower 48, which is what they called it.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the first aid. I took all, and I made a plan. We had to have a plan of escape for fire drills, but I made a plan for my personal family.
Right.
And that's what I want to do, is help personal families come up with a plan, come up with a meeting place, come up with all these emergency preparedness. And the first thing starts with have a plan.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. I'm going to jump into our 5 points here in just 1 second, but I love one thing that you said there. You made a distinction that in Alaska, it's different. Okay, so I live in Arizona. So that was the top end of the country. I live in the bottom end. You were in the cold, I live in the heat. And one of the things that's distinct here about our first aid and CPR training is that if you can't find a child, the first place you look is the pool, because water is such a huge attractant for children, and almost every home here has a pool. And so the first place you go is the pool. And then the other distinction, the other things that we learn is they teach us about snake bites here and how to deal with rattlesnake bites and things like that. But so that's a key point in this whole overriding thing that we're going to talk about, which is there are going to be things that may be specific to where you live as an individual, either your home itself or the environment you live in. So your first thing was, and you mentioned it briefly, but have an evacuation plan that includes a meeting point. What does that look like?
Well, in case you have to evacuate your home in floods, in fires, whatever the case may be, there needs to be a place where you can meet, because I know like in California, they have earthquakes. So you need to set up a place with your children, with your nanny, with your grandparents, whoever is a regular visitor to your home. You and your spouse get together, whatever the case may be, and create a meeting spot. And in case cell phones go out, they have like two-way radios that you can get. Make sure one or at least two people have contact with two-way radios. I lived in Washington, D.C. when 9/11 happened. And cell phone service was like crazy. Trying to get a message through was crazy. My sister-in-law was in the Pentagon. Her office was destroyed. We didn't know where she was. But we had a two-way radio, and it came in a 3-pack. She had one, we had one, and my husband's brother had one, so that all three of us could contact one another because we all lived in Maryland at the time. So we had these 3-way radios, and that was the only way we got in contact with her. And then even then it was still hard. But you need to have a place designated so that everybody is safe. Everybody is safe. Everybody meets up at that spot. And then you decide, okay, what are we going to do from here? What's the best route? Okay, my home is not destroyed. We can all go to my home. My home is not destroyed. We can all, wherever that is, you need to have that place, a meeting place, because anything can happen. Fire breaks out. I've even known in Florida, an alligator got in the house. So yes, alligator got in the house. I mean, it was like, it wasn't a huge one, but it was big enough to bite a child. And I was like, nope. So it was a friend of mine, and she came running down the street and came to our house. Our house was a safe house. And she came running down the street. She said, there's an alligator in there. I trapped him in the bathroom, but I can't go back in there. I'm too scared. So I called the security where we worked, and they went over there. They called the animal control center and everything, and they got the alligator out. But she was still scared to go home. So she stayed with me for the rest of the day. She called the parents and let them know, I have your child, and we're over with Angela, and we're staying here until you get home to check and see if there's anything else in the house, because she didn't want to take the baby back home, and because she was scared. Right. But she had a plan. And you never know what's going to happen. Like in Florida, there's gators everywhere. Mm-hmm. In Louisiana, there's gators everywhere. So it's like Tonya said, it is dependent on the region that you live in as to the emergency that you're going to have, but have a plan in place so that you will have a place to go, somewhere safe that you can stay and keep whatever child you have in. The kids don't know. They think they're going to a play date, and that's fine. But you're the one who is freaking out and like, oh my God. So don't freak out. Have a plan in place. Once you're safe, that's when you freak out. Right. Once I knew my kids were safe, that's when I freaked out.
Right. Of course. Absolutely. I've been there for sure. So the second thing we're going to talk about is fire drills and having a second floor fire ladder. And I can tell you that as a nanny, as a newborn care specialist, and as a mom, I have always been uncomfortable with being on the second floor for that reason, thinking if there's an emergency, if there's a fire, if somebody breaks in, how am I going to get these children safely out of the house if we're all on the second floor? And I will tell you, we now live on a single story house because I just sleep better. But nevertheless, if we're in that situation, we need to have practice. So single or double story fire drills and having a second floor fire ladder. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yes, you need to have fire drills, and you need to actually I have a smoke detector. It's not attached to the wall or anything else. I bought it for like $6 at Walmart. And I put batteries in it, and I only use it when I had fire drills. I had a home daycare. We had to have an escape plan. And a lot of people ring a bell, and no, I need you to hear the actual sound so that it will not scare you, first of all, because when kids get scared, they run and hide. And that's the last thing you need is for a child to run and hide. You need them to follow your instructions to get out of the door. They need to hear that smoke detector go off. They need to hear the actual sound. I'm not saying that you have to play it for a minute and a half. Just, beep it a couple of times so they'll know this is a loud noise. Mm-hmm. This means let's go to safety. It does not mean let's go run and hide because I'm scared to death. So if you practice with your children and let them know there's a way to explain it to them in their language. We're doing a fire drill just in case a fire breaks out. If they're school age, they do it at school all the time. They have fire drills at the school all the time. The fire drill at school sounds totally different than the fire drill at home, but they need to know what that smoke detector sounds like in your home. Mm-hmm. And they need to know where to go, how to get out, teach them how to touch the door, and always sleep with the doors closed. Teach them how to touch the door. If the door is hot, do not open the door. Teach them how to grab some clothes, pajamas or whatever, and push under the door because there's like this much room under the door. And the less smoke that you get in the room, the more chance they have of surviving. And because most kids, they die of just the smoke inhalation. The fire hasn't even gotten to them yet. So if you teach them how to shove their clothes underneath the door, and that will help save them too. But you need to have a ladder and practice with them going down the ladder. Even if you have to go down the ladder and help them over the ladder, practice. I know your neighbors are going to think, what are they doing? Are they crazy? They're putting their child in danger. But you're actually saving your child's life. You're putting measures in place to save your child's life. So having that ladder, even and you need to have one on both sides of the house, whether it's in mom and dad's room on this side of the house or the kids' room on that side of the house, you need to have it. You don't need your child trying to run through fire to get to the ladder to go down. Mm-hmm. You need to have one on both sides of the house, show them where it is, show them how to properly use it.
Yep. And that's a key component because it doesn't do any good to have a ladder if you don't actually know how to use it or know what to do with it. So yes. That's huge. And yeah, I think I'd probably alert the neighbors for sure. So what about having a safe room or a safe place and a safe word? Now we talk in the NCS world in particular, because a lot of us, even nannies, work for clients who might need to have safe rooms for a lot of reasons. Some of them are very high profile and there can be dangers to them as well. But how does that apply for our average families? A safe room, a safe place, and a safe word?
Well, average families can experience the same thing as high profile and high net worth families do. A burglar does not care. He is coming to get what he wants, and anybody that gets in his way. So you need a safe room or a safe place for your child to go. And maybe I watch too much NCIS, those shows, but There's a lot of truth where art imitates life. Children need a safe place to go and a safe room. Even if a tornado came, you still need a safe place to go because there are a lot of latchkey kids. And tornadoes don't care what time of day it is. They're coming, they're coming. So have a safe place for them. It's a little small closet, have a flashlight in there, have some snacks in there, and make sure the kids know this is not a regular play place. We don't play in here. This is for emergency only. These snacks are in here for emergency only. Now, I'm not going to tell you that your child's not going to go in there and want to eat snacks first if it is, because they're nervous, but have things for them to do while they're in there, a book to read, quiet things for them to do. I wouldn't suggest putting a tablet in there. I wouldn't suggest putting a video game in there because they'll get to playing and be like, yes, and give themselves away. So quiet things to do in the room. And I would also, if you have an old phone, all old phones will dial 911. Even if they cannot speak, have the volume that make sure that you preset the phone to silence so that, when you're dialing, some phones go, you don't want that to happen. Have it set on silent. Don't even do the vibrate, because if they sit it on top of something, they can hear it. It'll make a buzzing noise. So have that in place so that can at least dial 911. A safe word is something you get between you and your child. If it's grandma, if it's grandpa, the important people need to know the safe word, because if they are in the safe room and you just start calling their name and practice with the safe room, just because mom and dad is calling your name does not mean you come. If they say the safe word, then you come out. Make sure that they know that, because in an emergency, the burglar may tell you, call your kids, I want to see your kids. Well, and if you start calling their names and they start coming, you put them in danger. If you don't call the safe word, they know, do not come. Especially if you have instructed them to go to the safe room. Go to the safe room, don't come out until I say the safe word. I don't care if I call you 50 million times. Do not come out until I say the safe word. That works at the park, that works at the swimming pool, that works at school. If somebody says, well, your mom told me to come pick you up, have your child say, who are you and what's the safe word? If they don't know the safe word, run for help. And don't let somebody at the park say, oh, here's a piece of candy. Oh, she can have it. It's okay. Your mom won't mind. No. Unless you have a safe word, I don't care if you know that person. Unless you have a safe word, it is not okay to take that. So let your kids know, let grandma and grandpa, when the school somebody comes to the school, have them check the ID. I don't let anybody, and I tell my parents, I don't care if it's grandma that has lived here with you forever and ever. If I have not met them and you do not say that they are okay, I'm checking ID. So if they come and they don't have an ID, I'm not letting your child go.
Yep, absolutely. Those are key things. And I think a lot of times people think that that's overkill, that it's too much. But you know what? When I'm responsible, whether it's my kids or somebody else's, I would rather do too much. I'd rather be too much than to take a risk with a child's safety, because there are so many ways they are so vulnerable. And unfortunately, there are some really creepy people in our world. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned that I would love to have you talk about a little bit is, you said they need to understand how to do a low army crawl for safety. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Okay. I work with babies. My specialty is 0 to 3 years old. They find ways to get under beds. They find ways to get under the couch. They find little, just, I mean, it could be this small, but their hands are small enough to fit between the TV and the wall. And there's something shiny back there. I gotta get it. And they get stuck in there. Or they find it and they pull it out, and the first thing they do is go to their mouth.
Mm-hmm.
You have no clue where that nickel went. I can't find it. That's because it rolls in between there and it's just close enough for your child to get it. Now, what parents need to do and understand is you need to do it in an army crawl. The only way you can do an army crawl, just imagine barbed wire over your head. You don't want to lift up because you don't want to get stuck. I was military, so I've been there and done it and gotten stuck.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to do that. While you're down there, your head has to be one way. If you're looking and you see under the couch, guess what? Your baby sees it before you do because they're lower to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They're on the floor most of the time. You're standing up or you're on your knees, which means that you're up here, the floor is down here. Your child is like right here. And all they have to do is get down, and they always crawling. And they always seeing things under the couch, in crevices and creases. You need to do a low crawl at least once a week, if not every day. If you take change out of your pocket every day, do a low crawl every day. If there are rooms that your child should not be in, close the doors and put a lock on the door above where they can reach, because those little, they're supposed to be safety locks for the kids, and they lock, exactly. They lock the parents out, and the kids figure out how to stick their little fingers between the holes and get the door open.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there are latches that can go up at the top, and you have to slide them in order for them to open the door.
Mm-hmm.
I suggest those. But that army crawl can keep your child from choking, can keep, you take medicine and you dropped the pill, or you were sleepy and you thought you picked them all up. There's one little pill left. And they see that one little pill. Oh, that shiny little white pill. Oh, let me get it. Let me get it. It's a piece of candy.
Mm-hmm.
And your child is drugged.
Yep. Absolutely.
Just like that.
Those are huge things. We lived in a rental house for the last year. We finally just got to move into our house about a month ago. But prior to that, the rental house that we moved into had locks way up high on the door. And my husband's like, why is that up there? I said, because clearly somebody had an escape artist. And he's like, what? And I'm like, no, those are kid locks. That's why that's up there. It's to keep kids from opening the front door and walking out into the street. He was like, oh, it didn't even occur to him. But because of what you and I do, I instantly
know about that.
Door, right?
And locks on the cabinets too.
You bet. You bet. And the final thing that we had down to talk about today was having a first aid kit in the home. And I think a lot of people may have these, and they have some of the basics in them, but a lot of houses don't. And so let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, so the basic first aid kit: Band-Aids, a couple of patches of gauze, maybe a roll, a little pair of scissors, some little bee sting ointment, and some little A&D ointment. The basics. Now, I'm going to tell you a story. When I lived in Alaska, I had a home daycare. Yes, I'm back in Alaska because it's totally different. And we were taught, we created a first aid kit. We took twin size sheets and we cut them in a triangle. We just cut straight diagonal, because you can fold those and make a tourniquet. You can fold those and make a sling. You can fold those if somebody gets punctured, and you cannot, if somebody has a knife sticking in them, or a stick sticking out of them, or whatever, they fell on something, you don't pull it out. You have to pack it and keep packing it and keep packing it. And that little first aid kit that you have does not work. I was in a situation where I was driving, going to the grocery store. There was a woman, I could see her in the distance. And then I saw the moose. Now, moose stand like 6 to 10 feet tall with the huge antlers. And she honked her horn. That's the first thing they tell us when we get off the bus and go to the and we go to this meeting. They tell you, do not honk your horn because some horns sound like mating calls. It sounds like their war cry. Uh, some of the horns make noises that can cause the animals to get startled or to go in fight mode. Well, apparently this moose went in fight mode because his antlers went through her front windshield. I'm driving behind her and I'm like, oh my God. But, and he got stuck on her steering wheel. And his head is steady going like this. And I'm hearing this glass crashing. My kid's in the backseat asleep. So I parked my car. I run up there. I grab before I run, I grabbed my first aid kit. And because I have a first aid kit that I created, I have a huge pair of scissors. I had to cut her seatbelt and drag her out the back seat of the car before the moose totally destroyed her because he had cut her all up and down with his antler. The thing that saved her was in the wintertime, moose have this hair that grows over their antlers. So to help keep them warm during the wintertime. And I think that was the only thing that saved her. But I had to cut her out, drag her to my car, back up, and then go call 911. Because this was like in 1993. And cell phones were not as, I got one on my hip like they are today. But I called 911. They lived, the hospital was 2 blocks away. They came, the animal control center had to come and tranquilize the moose to get him out of the woman's car, out of her windshield. But if I had had a regular first aid kit, guess what? I've been trying to fight the moose to get to her seatbelt to try to, no. I had to go through the back door to get her out of there. No, all I could have done was going to call 911. But make you a first aid kit that has large scissors in it. You don't know what you're going to have to cut. You may have to cut clothes. You can't cut clothes with them little bitty kindergarten scissors. You can't cut clothes with a little bitty little safety, those little safety clips, nail clip things.
Mm-hmm.
You need gauze, not just 3 little pads. You need rolls of gauze. We had ice packs. You can buy ice packs that are is like a chemical ice pack, and it pop the middle and it immediately goes cold. You can buy the same thing with heat packs. Mm-hmm. Immediately it goes hot. Those types of things you need in your first aid kit. Have one in your car. Have one in the house. Keep a small one in the diaper bag. But even in the diaper bag, create your own so that you will have more than just the little Band-Aids, because those little Band-Aids are for kids. If you got a big wound right here and you need something over it, you're going to have to put some gauze on there. You need some medical tape to tape it on there. You're going to need more than what's just in that little kit. Mm-hmm. And most importantly, take the first aid class so you'll know what to do with the first aid kit, and take CPR, because you are your child's first savior. Mm-hmm. You, before the paramedics get there, before anybody else gets there, you are your child's first savior. You need to do what you, if you don't have, I see a lot of families that have, well, if you need the CPR chart, it's in the cabinet. Okay, so the cabinet's in the kitchen and the kids are in their bedrooms. So you're going to run back and forth and read directions. Okay, let me give him 2 breaths. Okay, let me run back. Okay, oh, let me pump his heart. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. How many times am I supposed to pump the heart? You don't have time to do back and forth, back and forth. If you take the class and remember just half of what because sometimes we panic. if you remember just half of what you were taught in the first aid and CPR class, your chances of saving your child are much greater than you running back and forth to a chart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trying to read.
I was just reading a post today where somebody said, hey, you know, my last first aid CPR was like 2014. Do you think families really care? And when all the people who are CPR instructors were like, look, it's the muscle memory, it's the practice over and over and over again, year after year, that's going to kick in if you have a legitimate emergency.
Right.
And I've been doing it for over 20 years. And I still feel like, wow, I'm not sure I would do the right thing. I just hope that all those times of doing it, you know, it would kick in. And I have kind of a more in-depth because I'm what's called a rescue diver. And so I have to learn things that are related to first aid and water and the ocean and the animals and oxygen and all kinds of things that are even beyond that. And I still wonder, would I remember? But that repeated exposure to it is what's going to be our savior in that moment when we panic, for sure. So you have shared some really fantastic tips. And as I said at the beginning, I'm really excited about this because we don't talk about this enough in any avenue, in parenting and childcare, anything. We just don't talk about these things enough. Is there anything else that's really key or important? One final little point that you feel like you want to share with everybody?
Well, I would say beyond what I just said, check your homes. Check to make sure that the water is not too hot, because children they just flip the water on and stick their hands in, and the next thing you know, you got burns. Don't let your children play in the kitchen while you're cooking. Have a designated area set off aside. And when I say don't let them play in the kitchen, it's okay if they have a special drawer that's away from the stove, because you don't know, you could be over here chopping vegetables and all of a sudden it boils over, and when it boils over, it spews. And if your child is sitting there, they get drops of hot liquid all over them that can cause third-degree burns. I've seen too many moms, they're in the kitchen cooking and the child's grabbing their leg and holding onto their leg, or they're holding the baby and cooking. I know there are some cases where it's important, you have no other choice, the child is screaming, but think about it. Would you rather your child scream for a minute while you go stir the pot? Or you go to open that lid and the steam, the baby, if you're wearing your baby, the steam off of that pot burns the back of your baby's legs, or your baby's arms, or even your baby's face. Because steam burns too.
Yeah.
You may not think about it, but if you stick your head in a dishwasher, you open the dishwasher and it fogs up your glasses, and you like, oh, think about it. You are sensitive to it. Your baby is extra sensitive to it, your children. So think about what you're doing in your kitchen around your children, and turn those pot handles around, because they're just big enough to grab those things. And that is one thing that scares me.
Absolutely. I have really appreciated all the information that you've shared with us tonight. We're going to make sure that we share in the feed information about the U.S. Nanny Association Conference. We'll share some information about Ask the Nanny and where they can find you on Monday nights. But I really wanted to just say thank you for joining us. I really appreciate having you here on Real Talk. It's been an honor to have you and to learn with you. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you inviting me to come on. I know my schedule's busy, your schedule's busy, so we finally got together.
Right, it can be a little crazy.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So if you have any questions for Angela, feel free to put them in the feed and tag her or tag Newborn Care Solutions, even if you're watching this on Facebook replay, because we can reach out to Angela and get answers for you to your questions. So we would love, if you want more information, to go ahead and put that there. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, Angela, and everybody have a fantastic night. Bye-bye.
Bye.